Good morning, grade 7 students. In this session, we're going to continue with our green plants as a revision for the previous session. And our session will talk about green plants. We said that the green plants, they are the plants that contain the green pigment, which is the chlorophyll. This pigment in the green plant, it absorbs the sunlight. So it has an important role in absorption of the sunlight. So all the green plants, they are called chlorophylltic plants. Why? Because they have chlorophyll, and non-chlorophylltic plants, they are non-green plants because they lack the chlorophyll. So we said that the green plant, they need four important elements needed for the growth of the green plants, four important nutritive needs. These nutritive needs, they are the water, they need mineral salts, they need carbon dioxide, CO2, and they need light in order to grow well. We move to this important experiment, green plants and water. Observe the following performed experiment, then answer the questions that follow. In this experiment, what do we have? In this experiment, we have three tubes, tube A, tube B, and tube C. These three tubes, they have different characteristics and different elements. For example, in tube A, we have only clay and water. Also, we have in tube B and tube C, we have clay and water. So all of them, they contain clay and water, but tube A contains only clay and water. After 2 days, 2 days later, the level of water in tube A, it remains the same, meaning that the level of water doesn't decrease here. Oh, this is the first tube. This tube is always referred as the control tube. Control tube, it's always used to compare and explain the experimental results. This control, we use it to compare the other tubes with the other tubes and also with the results. So this is called the control tube. Moving to tube B, it contains clay, also it contains water, but in addition to this, it contains a plant. This plant, it has stem and also roots. So it has both stem and roots. 2 days later, what happened? The level of water in tube B, it drops, meaning that it decreases. So what does this mean? This means that the plant here, it absorbs the water. That's why the level of water decreases. However, in tube C, the level of water where we have a plant that contains stem but no roots. So there is no root here. We have no roots in plant C, in tube C. So we have no roots. So this means that the plant doesn't absorb water. Since the level of water, it remains the same. So here we conclude that the roots, they are responsible for the absorption of water. Let's start first with tube A and B. If I said to compare between tube A and B, both of them, they contain clay and water, but tube B contains a plant. However, tube A, there is no plant. Tube B and C, what is the variable factor? Variable factor between tube B and C, that in tube B we have a plant containing roots and stem, while in tube C we have a plant containing only stem. So the variable factor here is the root. So we have roots in plant B while no roots in plant C. So let's turn the question step by step. Compare tube A to tube B at the beginning of the experiment. So at the beginning of the experiment, both tubes A and B, they contain clay and water. However, in tube B, we have root and stem of a plant, while in tube A, we have no plant. What is the role of the tube A? We said that the role of the tube A is called a control tube. It's used to compare and explain the results. Part 3. Compare the level of water in both tubes A and B at the end of the experiment. At the end of the experiment, the level of water in tube A, it remains the same. However, in tube B, it decreases to a lower level. Moving now to part 4, we said what may conclude from the experiment carried out in tubes A and B. We conclude that when we have a plant, the level of water decreases. With no plant, the level of water remains the same. So what can we conclude? We can conclude that the green plant, they absorb water. So here, both tubes, whenever we say about comparison that doesn't contain numbers, you have to talk about both similarities and differences and pay attention to this. Compare tube A to tube B at the beginning of the experiment, meaning that both tubes A and B, both of them, they contain water and they are covered by clay, both of them. So this is a similarity. However, tube A does not contain a plant. This is the difference here. No plant in tube A, while tube B, it contains a plant. So what is the role of the tube A that contains only water and clay? It's a control tube used to compare and explain the experimental results. And I told you before this, also we talk about this in digestion. So control tube used to compare and explain the experimental results. Compare the level of water in both tubes A and B at the end of the experiment. We set the level of water in tube A without a plant. So this is the variable factor. Without a plant, it remains the same. However, in tube B containing a plant, the level of water, it drops to a lower level. What can you conclude from this experiment? We can conclude that the green plants absorb water. Moving now to the question number 5. Question number 5, what is the variable factor between tubes B and C? Tube B, it contains a plant with root and stem. However, tube C, it contains a plant with only stem. So here is the variable factor. The variable factor is the roots. Part 6, compare the level of water in tube C to that in tube C, B and C in the end of the experiment. In tube B, the level of water it drops to a lower level, while tube C it remains the same. What does this mean? This means that when we have roots, the plant it absorbs water. When we don't have roots, the plant does not absorb. Deduce the structure responsible, the part of the plant responsible. This means the structure of absorption of water, it's the roots. And in specific, we're going to talk about which part of the roots. So to take a close look to the roots, we said that the roots consist of two main important parts. They are the root cap and the root hairs. These are the root hairs. They are like the hairy-like structures. They are called the root hairs. So which part of the root absorbs the water? The root cap or the root hairs or both of them? In this experiment, we answered this question. So we have two plants, 1 and 2. They are placed in two test tubes, 1 and 2, where both test tubes, they contain oil and they contain water. And as you know, water and oil, they are called immiscible liquids. What does this mean? This means that they do not mix according to their density. One of them is denser than the other. That's why the lighter will go up, which is the oil, and the water will go down. This is in chemistry. So here we continue. In plant 1, we have oil, water, and the plants. Two plants, 1 and 2, they have root hairs and root cap. In plant 1, what is happening in plant 1? In plant 1, the root hairs structure and the root cap, which is this part, both of them, they are placed in water. So the plant 1, it grows normally. However, in plant 2, the plant where the root hairs, they are in oil and the root cap, it's in water. So here, both of them, the root cap it's placed in water. In plant 1 and in plant 2, both of them, they are placed in water. So this is not the variable factor. Both of them, they are placed in water. But here, the root hairs are in water, while in plant 2, the root hairs, they are in oil. That's why this plant 2, it withers and it dies. So which structure is responsible for the absorption of water in the plant? Which part of the root? Sure, it's the root hairs and it's not the root cap. So here the variable factor in this experiment is the part of the root, which is the root hair or the root cap that is dipped in water. Distinguish the conditions in plant 1, the root hair and the root hairs and the root cap, both of them they are dipped in water, but in plant 2, the root hairs they are dipped in oil. However, the root cap they are dipped in water. After dipping the root hairs, this is the analysis. And here is the difference between analyze and interpret. Who can tell me what is interpret by raising your hands, please? What is interpret? Yes, yes, Razan. What is interpret?
Analyze plus indication.
Analyze plus indication. Very good. So interpret, for those who don't know what is interpret, it's analyze plus indication. So analyze plus indication. This is the interpret. If you did for the interpret only analyze, this time I gave you half of the mark. Next time you got 0 out of the mark, because interpret and analyze, they are totally different. Interpret, it's analyze plus indication. If you did only analyze, so you don't know what the meaning of interpret, so you're going to lose the mark. So pay attention to this. Interpret, it's analyze plus indication. And this indication always and always should be specific for the experiment. It should be specific for the experiment. This is the difference between indication and conclusion. Conclusion will be in general. However, indication should be specific. Here, we move to the question analyze the obtained results. So after dipping the root hairs and the root cap in water, the green plant grows. While after dipping the root hairs in oil and the root cap in water, the green plant it withers and dies. So what is the conclusion here? We can conclude that the root hairs and it's the root is responsible for absorption for water in green plants. So the root hairs is responsible or are responsible for absorption of water in green plants. Now I'm going to move to our quiz. Oh my God, it was very hard. Green plants and carbon dioxide. The experiment below is done to study the importance of carbon dioxide for the growth of the green plants. We have two young bean plants. They are water with rich in fertilizer and exposed to light. So they told you that we have water and we have sunlight. Who can tell me what is fertilizers? What is the indication of fertilizer? What do we mean by fertilizer? Yaslin Khalifi, what do we mean by fertilizer?
Mineral salt.
Very good. Whenever we talk about fertilizers, here we are talking about mineral salts. Very good. So here we have two plants, A and B. In A, it's a medium that is rich in CO2. So here we have high amount of CO2. However, in medium B, we have very low amount of CO2, and even though CO2 is going to be absent in plant B. So here we have two plants A and B. In plant A, where the medium is containing CO2, it grows tall and green after 15 days. However, in plant B, after 15 days, the plant it withers and dies. So, what is the potassium hydroxide symbol? Who can give me the formula of potassium hydroxide? I need new hands other than Razan Sultani and other than Lee Khalifi. Others waiting for you, raising your hands. You're still sleepy, these students. Other than Razan, yes, Huda. What is the formula of potassium hydroxide?
KOH.
Very good. K capital, O capital, and H capital. This is potassium hydroxide. Thank you, Huda. This is the symbol of potassium hydroxide. So here we have potassium hydroxide, KOH. First of all, let's read the given in order to ask some questions. The experiment below is done to study the importance of carbon dioxide for the growth of green plants. If I ask you, Yatalin, what is the posed problem here? Okay, Talin is not here. I need the new students other than Razan, Din Khalifi, and Huda. I need new hands. I need the males to be here. We have only females today. Others. Okay, I'm going to pick right now. Let's move to Hassan Ajradi. What do you think? What is the
Yes.
posed problem, ya Hassan?
What is the importance of carbon dioxide for the growth of green plants?
And what do you put at the end?
Question mark.
Very good. Question mark. So what is the importance of carbon dioxide for the growth of the green plant? Zahra Diya, if I ask you, what is the objective of this experiment? What is the objective of this experiment? Objective, it means the purpose, it means the aim of this experiment.
Yes.
Yes, so what is the objective?
The objective of this experiment?
Yes,
The objective of this experiment is to study the importance of carbon dioxide for
very
the
good.
growth of green plants.
Very good. So objective is to study the importance of carbon dioxide for the growth of greener plants. Let's move now to Fatima Batah. What is the variable factor, ya Fatima?
The variable factor is the CO2.
CO2. And it's not the potassium hydroxide. Some of you, they wrote the variable factor is the potassium hydroxide, and it's not. The potassium hydroxide, it's used for a specific goal. If I ask you, ya Laris Shahab, what is the role of potassium hydroxide? What does it do?
To absorb the CO2.
To absorb CO2. To absorb the CO2 and not to eat CO2 like someone they wrote. Someone wrote, for example, some importance of carbon dioxide is to absorb or to eat CO2. It's not correct. It's to absorb CO2, not to eat. It's not eating, it's absorbing CO2. And others, they wrote, the role of potassium hydroxide is to absorb CO2 and give oxygen. So what is this? What is this? Absorb CO2 and gives oxygen? It's not the role of the potassium hydroxide. I'm sure you won't get the mark for this part. Thank you, Laris. Let's move to the questions here. First, they said, copy and complete the following table of conditions and results. Ali Basma, first of all, what are the elements for
Yes.
the table? What do we have to put? Yes, Ali Basma.
Ustaz, can you repeat what you said?
Yes, the
Your
table.
voice is so lagging. Can you repeat what you said?
Yes, I'm hearing you normally. So
Yes.
here, what the table of conditions, Ya Ali. What are the elements needed for the table? What do we have to put for the table, and what do we do in the case we have a table? Can you tell me?
The title of the table.
Very good. First of all, we have to put the title for the table. What is the title always?
Table showing the conditions and the results.
Very good. Table showing the conditions and the results. This is the first one. First of all, we have to put for the table the title. Table showing the conditions and the results. Okay, thank you, Ali. Let's move for, I need a new student here. I need Ali Khalifi. Good morning. Ali Khalifi. Okay, good night. Larissa Skaiki.
Yes.
Ali said that we have to put the title, table of conditions and results. So what is needed in addition to the title? What do we have to put? In addition to the title, what do we have to put?
Um.
Oh, it's a hard question. Great, great, great. We have to put the legend. We have to put the legend. Plus means presence and minus means absence. So these are needed for the table. We need to put the title and we need to put the legend. Plus means presence and minus means absence. From now on, and I used this in the last quiz, some of you, they filled the table without putting a title and without putting the legend. This means that you miss 1 out of the half. So you miss 0.75 marks. You miss half of the mark. So the mark is 1.5. So you miss half of it, which is 0.75 marks. They are lost.
I didn't
Why?
show them in the quiz.
Why? Because you didn't put the title, Fatima, and you didn't put the legend. Title and legend, they are very important for the table. If you didn't put them, this means that this table has no importance. What is the meaning of a plus and what the meaning of minus? I don't know. So I told you hundreds of times that we have to put the title and the legend. Title and legend. Title always should be below the table. Table showing conditions and results. Plus means presence and minus means absence. Water is present in both. Since our water, mineral salts, since both of them contain fertilizers. Light is present in both. CO2 is present in plant A, it's absent in plant B. Result, here green plant, it grows tall and green. Or you can say it grows normally. However, in the plant B, what's happening in plant B? The plant B, it withers and dies. So this is the table. And always the table should be drawn using a pencil and it should be filled using a pen. This is the first part. Then identify the variable factor in this experiment. What the meaning of identify? Identify, we have to justify, but here I didn't focus exactly on this. Identify the variable factor. The variable factor is CO2. They said identify. Simply, you say, since it's found in plant A and it's absent in plant B, identify it's always at the rhyme of Y5. So we have to justify. 43. What is the objective of this experiment? Why do we do this experiment? Objective, as you said before, the objective is to study the importance of carbon dioxide for the growth of the green plant. Till now, you didn't add any information from your side. First 1.5 marks from the table. There, variable factor 0.75 marks, 0.25 marks for the A. Here, additional information from your side, from your acquired knowledge. What is the role of KOH? Some of you, they told me KOH is used to give oxygen and to give the life for the plant. From where did you get this? Some of you, they searched it on the Google. What is the role of KOH? And they wrote something related to chemistry. So KOH is used to absorb CO2. This is the role of KOH. Part 5. Interpret the above experiment. What the meaning of interpret? We said that interpret, it's analyze plus indication. And we said that the indication should be specific for the experiment. So what do you have to say? After placing the young bean plant in medium A in the presence of carbon dioxide, where you can say after placing the young bean plant in medium A rich in CO2, the plant after 15 days it grows tall and green, while plant B, which is placed in a medium poor in carbon dioxide, after 15 days it withers and dies. What does this indicate? This indicates that the bean plants, they need CO2. This is specific for this experiment. We are talking about the bean plants. So this indicates that the bean plants, they need CO2 to grow tall and green or to grow normally. This is the indication. However, the last part is conclusion. What can you conclude? We conclude that CO2 is important for the growth of the green plants. CO2 is important for the growth of the green plant is the conclusion. Here I'm talking in general. While the indication, as you listen, I said this indicates that the bean plants, they need CO2 to grow tall and green. So here I move in specific to this experiment. This is talking about the bean plants. So this indicates that the bean plant, they need CO2 to grow tall and green. It's an indication. It's specific for this experiment. However, conclusion should be in general. So this means that conclusion means CO2 is important for the green plants, and one of them is the bean plants. Or you can say the green plants cannot grow without the presence of CO2. Also, this is a conclusion. Here, most of you, what did they do? Most of you in the quiz, they did analyze in this part. Analyze in this part, I gave you 1/2, which is 0.5 marks. 0.5 out of 1.25. So here you missed 0.75 marks. You lost that. This is if you solve the analysis correctly. You missed 0.75 marks. For those who don't know where their marks go, here's we go. So here, the interpret is totally different from the analyze. Analyze and interpret, they are not the same, even though interpret is analyze plus indication, but yes, indication here is the difference. So if you didn't complete the analysis with indication, this means for me that you don't know what is interpret. And already we knew about interpret, and we solved about interpret, and we used interpret a lot in chapters in plants and also as well as in digestion. So this interpret, you have to keep it in your mind. Interpret, it's not analysis. It's analyze plus indication. And you have to know that, and you have to remember that. Every verb at the rhyme of Wi-Fi, you have to justify. So here, identify, you have to justify. Specify, you have to justify. Table of condition, I don't know why some people, they have mistakes in the table of conditions.